Hello, this is Kate Gustafson, and for my artist presentation, I've selected Wes Anderson. He is an American writer, director, and producer, most known for some of his films, The Royal Tenenbaums, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and The Isle of Dogs. What's most notable, though, is really his creative, unique, distinct style of his films. He's not afraid to bring you into a fairyland world. He's not trying to create films that are so realistic you feel like this could happen every day. He's got a little bit of whimsy to him, and I'm always impressed, amazed, and inspired when I see some of his work. Wes Anderson was born in Texas, Houston, Texas to be exact, on May 1st in 1969, and he never really planned on being a filmmaker. In his childhood in the 70s and early 80s, he did make some short films and recorded some plays with his brothers as the actors on their Super 8 camera, but never really thought that, I'm going to, go to film school. He ended up pursuing philosophy at the University of Texas. And it was there in 1989 that he met Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson was not a famous actor back then, clearly. As you can see in the picture, they're both quite young and geeky, but they both grew into themselves. They just had a really great rapport and had all these creative juices, flowing, so they ended up writing this screenplay together. And in 1992, they actually completed this movie. Unfortunately, despite borrowing thousands of dollars from their parents, their budget still just did not stretch far enough. So instead of this feature-length film, with all the little fancy details, it ended up being mostly a black and white film that was 13 minutes long. So probably a little disappointing to their parents for it to end up being only 13 minutes long. But despite the fact that it was only 13 minutes long, they did have, some people watch it, probably just friends, and I think they had a little film viewing at a local theater. But it wasn't until 1994 that Owen and Wes got their big breaks. In 1994, they were able to get their short screened at Sundance Film Festival, and it was there that it caught the attention of famous director James L. Brooks. Now, James L. Brooks did not want to fund the movie himself, of course. No one ever wants to use their own money. So he did direct them to Columbia, which was kind of, I guess, not really doing a pro bono type of, film film scholarship, but they were funding some very, very small kind of probably D-rated movies, and just they ended up being in the right place at the right time and being introduced to the right people. Now, since then, his humble beginnings, Wes has written 18 films, shorts, plays, and commercials. He's directed 21. He's produced 14 of them. He's curated an exhibition at a museum. He's acted in 3 films, which, minor parts, voice acting, that sort of thing. That's his own films. And he's also designed a cafe, it's Bar Luce in Milan. People are just so drawn to his unique, just colorful, vibrant, wonderful fairy tale style that everyone wants him to do something. But I personally just want him to do movies because I'm not over in Milan. If you've never had a chance to watch one of Wes Anderson's movies, I highly recommend starting with his 3rd film, which is The Royal Tenenbaums. That film just spoke to me. It was so interesting, so visually appealing, so intricate in certain, places. The characters had kind of bizarre dialogue at times. There was just a whole interesting, weird, twisted plot going on. And also the music was fabulous, the soundtrack. Wes just has this way of incorporating all these little details to make, his films just kind of explode on the screen. Unfortunately, I never saw Royal Tenenbaums in the theater. I would have died to see it on, the big screen. But nonetheless, I did see Grand Budapest Hotel in the theater, and that was just, I was speechless. It was just so beautiful. One notable thing that you'll see in Wes Anderson's films is there will almost always be a very organized, well thought out, very detailed wall somewhere in a scene or maybe in many scenes. A lot of organized papers. You'll notice it either on desks where everything seems to be, well organized, kind of lined up. This, he likes straight lines. He likes, this level of order to his works, which I absolutely think is wonderful. It's so interesting that he goes that deep into his detail, that he thinks it's that important to take the time and make all these little handwritten notes, which you also see lots of people writing letters or reading, someone else's handwriting in his films, which I think is interesting. There's almost always someone reading a letter or writing a letter. The level of detail that he brings to his films is also shown in his choice of colors. Sometimes he's using very pastel muted colors, but then he'll bring these just ultra rich, super saturated colors that just, those scenes stick in your mind. They're just visually stunning, such as the red elevator in the Grand Budapest Hotel, the bluish bathroom in the Royal Tenenbaums, or the yellow room in the Darjeeling Limited. They all just really stick in your mind. Once you've seen them, you really can't forget them. Another hallmark of a Wes Anderson film is his use of books. These characters are always reading or picking up books, or you see these very distinctive books in the background. I mean, they're all, figments of Wes's imagination. They're not real books, but some of them are very amusing. And, you pick up on those little details maybe the second time that you watch the movie. And it always kind of keeps you wondering, like, oh, I wonder what, if he has a story behind that book. In Wes Anderson's films, he has kind of a running theme. There's going to be similar characters or similar, camera angles, some weird, quirky, bit of 60s classic rock music that, a song you hadn't thought about in a million years, or just absolute, absurdity and unrealistic events. But they all really create this kind of, comforting, amusing, thought-provoking, just pure entertainment. And they can also be really inspirational for an artist, whether, you're studying music or film, writing, maybe you want to be an actor. I feel like there's something in every one of his films that kind of, turns on that little, creative knob in your head, which, every artist wants a little boost. So if you really are, have a creative, block, watch a Wes Anderson film, because you'll certainly have, just this amazing, vivid imagination that is swirled around in your head after watching. But some of the common themes throughout his films are things that we can relate to. There's always going to be a dysfunctional family. Stop!
You don't love me! Yes, I do!
I love you too, but I'm gonna mace you in the face! Stop!
If his movies don't have a character dying or a funeral, there's going to be a character talking about death.
Going to kill myself tomorrow.
And keep a lookout for the man-child. There's always going to be probably multiple man-children in his films. And it's a level of immaturity is kind of, I guess, not an attractive quality, but it's not bad either. Everyone has, those moments where they act like a 5-year-old, and who cares? That's how you needed to express yourself at that moment. It could be something subtle, or it could be something, drastic. And we all need to laugh more. We all need to, find the silliness in the world. And the quirkiness and whimsy that Wes Anderson brings to his films kind of gives permission to daydream, gives you permission to, go back to your childhood and have just that, kind of dreamy fairy tale land. And there's always going to be some sort of violence in his films, but it's usually comical.
On mentally feeble, sick old ladies. And he probably fucks them too.
I go to bed with all my friends.
I think we're all have a little more Wes Anderson in us than we actually think. And I think that's a good thing. I think everyone needs some Wes Anderson in their life, some bit of the creative, the unreal, the unimaginable, just, letting yourself go and escape into a story is just the most wonderful thing that someone can do, is get your mind off the heaviness of the real world. And when I just started reading and researching for this presentation, I felt like, my mind was just shooting off colors and ideas and words. I haven't even watched one of his films recently, and I'm just so excited about watching all of them again. So he really does, make an impact on, certain people. Maybe we're the broken people, who knows? But it was kind of amusing while doing this and putting this presentation together that I didn't even realize that I have a little bit of Wes Anderson in my style, as noted in this beautiful picture of my wall. I hadn't really realized how, I guess, it's organized, but it's quirky, it's kind of random. But I just found it kind of amusing that, oh, hey, I've got the start of a Wes Anderson wall. So find some Wes Anderson in your life. I think it's a great thing when you're inspired by an artist. That's the whole purpose for artists, is to, give us that, that sense that, it's okay to be a little odd. It's okay to be strange. You can be a nerd, but have, these wonderful thoughts, and you need to find that way to express them in any way that you can, whether it's acting, singing, playing an instrument, writing, doing pottery. I don't know if there's any pottery in his films, but I wouldn't be surprised that there is some unique items. So all in all, I think Wes Anderson really represents what it is to be an artist. He lives through his creativity. He lives every day as if, he has the ability to create his own world, and he does. So maybe everyone can add a little fantasy to their life.